Last year, I read over 120 books, and the year prior, I read close to 150. But before this, I used to read about 50 books a year, one book a week on average. Here is how I triple the amount of books I read in a year, and you will find that reading more is easy actually. In 2020, I read about 50 books. However, because it was lockdown, there wasn't much else to do, and also I was furloughed, so I had loads of free time. I have managed to double, almost triple the amount of books which I read in a year, yet I have a full-time job prior to going on maternity leave, and I have an active social life too. I just want to make it very clear that I don't think that reading is a competition, and this is not me telling you that I think you need to read more books. However, I always get asked how I manage to read the amount of books which I do, so I thought in this video I will include some really helpful tips and tricks to help you fit more reading into your lifestyle if that is what you please. And make sure to stick around the end because I'm saving the most useful trick until the very end. Tip number 1 is practice makes perfect. I would consider myself to be a fast reader despite the fact that I'm dyslexic, and I do think the reason I have become such a fast reader is just due to the fact that I've read so many books. I do believe that the more you read slowly over time, you will just naturally become faster when it comes to reading, and therefore able to fit more books in. Tip number 2 is fit reading into your daily commute. Whether you're driving, getting on public transport, I think that this is the opportune way to fit in some reading. You can listen to an audiobook while driving, you can read a physical book or your Kindle if you're on public transport, and depending on how long your commute is, it is a great way to fit in an extra half an hour of reading every day. However, if you work from home, this tip works for you too. Rather than having a lie-in before work, get up half an hour earlier before you would and use this time to fit in some more reading. If you were to get up an hour earlier every day before work, that's 5 hours of reading time. That's at least half a book that you can fit in really easily per week. Tip number 3 is DNF, or for those of you not familiar with the term, did not finish. i.e. if you're not enjoying a book, rather than powering through, just sack it off and forget about it. Reading a book which you're not enjoying is naturally going to slow you down because you're not going to want to pick up that book. And also, it runs the risk of you ending up in a reading slump and not wanting to read whatsoever, which is not great when it comes to hitting those reading goals. I never ever used to DNF. I used to suffer through, and honestly, since DNFing, I just find it so much more freeing. Even if you only read a handful of pages and decide really early on it's not for you, that is fine. There are plenty more books in the sea, so to speak. Tip number 4 is go off book recommendations. Whether these book recommendations come from content creators who have a similar book taste to you or friends who know the types of books that you will enjoy, listen to these recommendations. This kind of works in the opposite way to DNFing a book. If you're enjoying a book, you're likely to want to pick it up more often. And depending on the book, maybe more so for the thriller genre, you're more likely to read it faster and fly through it. And by going off these recommendations, I just think it increases your chance of finding those books that you're going to love. Tip number 5 is log what books you're reading on book reading apps such as Goodreads and Storygraph. On Storygraph, you fill out a quiz on likes and dislikes, and it recommends you books based on your quiz. But also Storygraph recommends you books based on what you've given star ratings of the books you've read. So like with my previous point, this just ups your chances of finding a book you're really going to enjoy. Then on Goodreads, if you enjoy a particular book, it will let you know underneath what books other readers who enjoyed that book might enjoy. So once again, increasing your chances of finding a book that you're going to really enjoy, a story which is going to immerse you, a story you're not going to be able to put down, and a story you're just going to love and read quickly. Tip number 6 is reading challenges. On Goodreads, you can set an annual reading goal, and I personally always set it as 100. It keeps you updated as to how far you are to meeting your goal, if you're a book or 2 behind or a book or 2 ahead. And the competitive person that lies within wants to meet that reading goal and beat it, and sometimes I even want to beat my previous year. And by having this competitive streak, it encourages me to read more. There are loads of other challenges on there, but that's the one I personally find really helpful to encourage me to read more. Reading streaks are also a huge way to help me read faster and to encourage me to read more. Kindle actually lets you know for how many days in a row you've read, and the thought of breaking that streak just encourages me to read. I don't want to break that streak. I want that number to get as high as humanly possible. And obviously this encouragement of reading every day is going to help you to read more books. Tip number 7 is get rid of distractions. Yes, that means get rid of your phone, put it away, read, and don't doom scroll. I myself am guilty of spending hours doom scrolling, looking through TikTok, looking through Instagram, when that time could be spent reading instead. By putting that phone away, by getting rid of those distractions, it just means that you're able to read solidly for a time period, you don't get distracted, and it helps you to read more. Tip number 8 is make sure that you are comfortable when you are reading. If you are comfortable, you are much more likely to read without interruptions. I personally like to read my Kindle before going to sleep. I like to read in the bath with my phone away, or if the weather's nice, I like to read in the garden in the sunshine. These are my favourite reading positions. When I read in one of my 3 most favourite places, this is where I get the most reading done for sure, and this has helped me to read way more books over the years. If you are a Kindle or e-reader reader, then tips 9 and 10 are for you. Tip number 9 is put the Kindle app on your phone. I know that this is counterproductive when I said it in one of my earlier tips to get rid of distractions and put your phone away, but hear me out. If you're ever caught out in a situation, I don't know, you're at a doctor's appointment and they're running really late and you don't have your Kindle or a book with you, then if you have the app on your phone, you could just continue reading your book. I honestly have found the Kindle app on my phone to be a lifesaver. I have been caught out quite a few times where I've just not had my book or a Kindle on me, and the app has allowed me to get an extra half an hour reading when if I hadn't have had the app on my phone, I would have just been doom scrolling on social media. Tip number 10 is to change your Kindle settings. You can change the warmth, the brightness, the font, the text size, and so many more things. And the benefit of this over a physical book is obviously you can make those pages as visually appealing as possible. And by making the text size bigger, making the font more desirable, it will make reading easier, you'll read faster and get more books read. I am dyslexic and I personally use the dyslexia font on the Kindle, and I've actually seen lots of people who are not dyslexic also talk about how they love the dyslexia font because it just makes it so much easier for them to read. I only have 2 more tips left to go. If you've made it this far, then thank you ever so much. I honestly appreciate it so much. If you're not already doing so and would like to hit that subscribe button for crime, thriller and mystery book recommendations and other bookish related content, then I would honestly appreciate it so much. Tip number 11 is trial, error and adapting. Even though I've just been raving about how great Kindle is for Kindle settings, my personal preference for reading is reading a physical paperback book. However, since having a baby, I have found reading a book while the man sleeps on me incredibly difficult, and I have been reading way more on my Kindle. There's been lots of trial and error and adapting my old reading routine to work around my new way of life. Then my 12th and final tip is have 3 books on the go. Yes, that sounds really daunting, but hear me out. I always have on the go a physical book, a Kindle book and an audiobook, so I have a book for every occasion. I personally have 3 different stories on the go, but you could have the same book on all 3 formats if you so please. And the reason this has made such a big difference to me and being able to read more is that I just have a book for every occasion. When I drive and when I'm in the gym, I listen to audiobooks. And obviously if I was in the gym, I wouldn't be able to read my Kindle really or read a physical book. So by having an audiobook on the go, it's allowed me to fit in more books. I'm not doing a lot of driving and I'm certainly not going to the gym at the moment. But before having the little man, by adding audiobooks into my lifestyle, it was allowing me to read an extra book or 2 a month. Then I find a Kindle really useful because it will just slip into my bag when a book might be too big. And I also find reading a Kindle before bed much easier than reading a physical book. And then I just have a physical book for when I'm reading at home, and because it's my preferred method of reading, I do find I'm fastest when reading a physical book. So just to recap, in 2020 when it was locked down and we didn't have much to do and I was on furlough, so I had loads of free time, I read about 50 books. Now, despite the fact I have a full-time job and an active social life, by using these 12 tips which I've listed in the video, I am able to read 2-3 more times the amount of books per year. And obviously reading is not a competition, you should just read at your own pace, but hopefully if you're wanting to read more, these tips will help you. Thank you ever so much for taking your time to watch this video. What tips and tricks do you use to help you read more? Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you, bye!